Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the TradeStation Masterclass. My name is Jesus Nava. I'm the Director of Client Training and Education for TradeStation Securities. And it's always a pleasure to be here to talk a little bit about TradeStation, specifically strategy elements. This is a topic that I find fascinating, and it's so interesting and so cool how TradeStation allows you to test ideas and back test against historical data. So I think those are elements of TradeStation that sets our platform apart. Today we're going to talk about exit on close automation. So we're going to take a look at the technicalities around trying to automate a strategy that generates an exit on close, and what are the limitations and the things that you should be paying attention to. But before we jump into today's topic of masterclass, let's go through some of the disclosures. Keep in mind that every symbol and idea that I talk about is for educational purposes only. It is not a recommendation of TradeStation. Also, that active trading is not suitable for everyone, and that past historical performance is no guarantee of any future results. For additional information, please visit the link right there on this PowerPoint slide, www.tradestation.com/important information. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. Before I jump over to the TradeStation platform and show you a few things in a more practical way, let's go through the content of this PowerPoint just to so that we can start the discussion and talk about some of the things that you should always pay attention to. The information that I'm going to show you is already on that PDF that I shared with everyone right here in the chat. And if you haven't seen it, let me go ahead and send it again so that it refreshes inside of the chat. Set exit on close, as you can see right there on the top of this slide. It's an easy language reserved word that automatically forces the strategy to exit whatever position you have open inside of the strategy. It's a built-in stop reserved word that can be used to place an exit order to close all shares or contracts in an open, long, or short position at the end of the session. So it doesn't really matter how many shares or how many contracts you're holding. Just the word itself, set exit on close, will exit all the shares and contracts that you have. Let's talk a little bit more about this. Set exit on close looks at the session end time specified in the chart properties. So that's something that we're going to look into because setting exit on close is kind of difficult when you do it in an automation setting, and we'll talk about those limitations. For historical backtesting, set exit on close generates a market order on the bar close, even on the last bar for the session. Okay, so that's a very interesting way of monitoring or managing your strategy. Let's go ahead and take a look at an example so you can see how this set exit on close works on TradeStation. Let me go here to my TradeStation platform, and let's build a strategy together. Let me go here to apps. I'm going to click on chart analysis. All right, and this is a 5-minute chart of Disney. I'm going to make it a very simple strategy. In fact, let's write it ourselves. One of the things that I emphasize when we talk about strategies is the ability for TradeStation to be flexible in that way, in which it allows you to build and create any strategy idea. What I'm thinking about right now, it's taking advantage of these gaps. So whenever there's a gap up, I want to enter a trade, and I want to hold that trade until the end of the day. Very simple trading idea, but let's see how it plays out against historical data. It didn't play well today, though. You see how we had a gap up, and the gap was closed. In fact, it's further down the road from that gap. So in addition, to that exit on close, we may need to look at other exits to manage our risk. This is a risky trade where the market seems to be going down, and it would have generated a long trade right here, right? So, but as I said before, today's presentation is all about exiting on close. So it's not really about managing risk, but let's go ahead and take one step at a time, and let's talk about how we can build a strategy like that. I'm sure there's a strategy here that takes a look at gaps. So let's go here, add strategy. And I thought about, writing it ourselves, but since these components are probably already part of the list of components, there's no reason for us to, create it from scratch. The two strategies that I'm going to be using is gap up, LE, and gap down, SE. Notice that they're both designed to take the trade in the direction of the gap. So gap up is a long entry and gap down is a short entry. Let's go ahead and click OK. And I'm not going to, all right, I'm not going to combine it with any other strategy. And I'm just trying to understand what just happened, okay? Yes, right? Sometimes typing a strategy is great, but this is a very simple strategy. In fact, we can look at the code. Let's look at the code here and understand why the strategy is doing what it's doing right now. So let's go here to the long entry. All right. And you can see that the condition is very straightforward. This is exactly what I was going to type inside of my strategy code if I had, created it myself. If low is greater than the high, one bar ago, then buy. Next bar at market. The only problem with this condition is that it'll also trigger orders even intra-day. So not only looking at the opening of the bar, it'll also, if there's a gap intraday, it'll generate a trade if it has to. Let's go ahead and see what happened here on our chart and understand what's going on. We only see one single entry historically. And the reason for that is because we don't have any more gaps. I mean, we have more gaps here going forward, but these are gaps up, right? I mean, the price gapped up. And since we are already in a long trade, it doesn't take additional trades unless we tell it to. However, what is true about this, I mean, what is the condition about the conditions on the strategies are what we just explained. If there's a gap intraday, it still takes that trade. Let me load more historical data to see if we can get more of a trade. Okay, so here, if we go back in history, there we go, we have a gap down. But you see the gap trades are not being exited until there's another gap. So we're gonna introduce a set exit on close on this strategy to see how it behaves. I want you to look at right here. This is a clear example of something that happened intraday. Notice that it didn't happen at the beginning of the day, but if I use my magnifying glass and I zoom in, you can see that there's a gap up right here, the conditions met, and then it generates a trade right here at 2:05 in the afternoon. So not really what I wanted for the strategy. So that's why I said, let's write it ourselves. So let's go ahead and do that instead, okay? So I started adding the elements and I then realized that it's not doing exactly what I wanted to. All right, so I have 6 months of historical data on this chart. Let's zoom out, perfect. And let me go here to apps and click on easy language. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the drop down here and select a new strategy. And this will be JN exit on close. Let's add a little bit more detail. Gap entry with exit on close. Now it's a long name for a strategy, but I wanted to have enough details in the name that I know exactly what it's doing, okay? So in order for me to know that I'm at the beginning of the day, an easy way to do that is comparing the dates of the bar. If date does not equal the date one bar ago, then begin. How does that translate into knowing that you're at the beginning of the day? Well, if I go back to my trade station, that condition, which means that the dates are not the same, one bar to the next, only happens on the very first bar of the day. On the very first bar of the day, we have a different date than the previous one, because the previous one, of course, is the previous trading session. So when it compares the date of one bar to the next, and it finds that it's not the same, it knows that it's at the beginning of the day. Because throughout the day, all the other candles have the exact same date as of the prior one, up until we have a new bar on a new trading session, which is when the criteria is met. So what I'm going to do right here in my strategy is I'm going to do this. If the low is greater than the high of 1 bar ago, then buy next bar at market. And then I'm going to do if the other side, if the high is less than the low 1 bar ago, then sell short next bar at market. And I'm just going to put in an end right here. Okay, so because we have a begin right here at the top, we have an end. So this should work. Okay, so we're looking for gaps, and that's why I'm comparing the low to the high. So there's a separation or a gap in between, the low and the high. You just have to inverse those relationships when we're talking about a short trade. But again, we're going to put this on the chart to see if it's doing exactly what we want it to do. Okay. Does it work for electronic? I think that Terry, when you ask if it works for electronic, you're referring to futures, especially the overnight. This is a tricky one for electronic sessions or overnight sessions because date does not equal date 1 bar ago is something that happens at midnight, which is not the opening of the session. So there are more elegant ways in which you can confirm that you're at the first bar of the chart. Another way to do this, if time equals first bar, first session, I think that there's a session, first bar time. All right, there's a function that's called session first bar time, and you do have to supply 2 parameters here, 1, 1. This is a more elegant way of knowing that you're at the beginning of the session. The function session first bar time, in fact, let me capitalize a few letters here in between, doesn't really matter, but when you read it, the words stand out to you. So session first bar time. The function is supposed to calculate the time of the very first bar of the session based on the interval and whatever you have on the chart. It does that automatically for you. So if it finds that the time of the bar is the same as the session first bar time, then it's going to begin. So for futures, this would work better. The other way, if you do date does not equal the date 1 bar ago, only works for stocks. It works for futures because that's something that you have to be careful about, is that it works for futures, but the conditions met at midnight, which is not the beginning of the session. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and verify this. And let's put it on my TradeStation chart. Let's go here. I'm going to go studies, add strategy. And let's look for exclamation JN. Okay, so I call the gap entry with the exit on close. All right, so let's squeeze the chart a little bit just to see what's going on. So we have the gap up right here on this bar. We don't have the other gaps here because we are already in a long trade. Just keep that in mind, okay? And if we go back here, let's see. Yeah, we have that short trade on this gap down. So it seems like it's following our strategy rules exactly the way that we intended it. Now let's go back here to the code because what we wanted to test is not the gap. I'm just using the gap as an idea to enter the market. What we're interested in is the set exit on close. And when you have a strategy like this and you want to add an exit on close, all you need to do is type out the word set exit on close. And you can see that when you type it up, it turns blue so that it recognizes it as a reserved word. So that's when you know that this is something that Easy Language knows what it is. And if you want to have a little bit more detail about this, right click on it and go to the definition of set exit on close, and it provides you more information. We're going to come back to this document in a little moment, but I want to see how the strategy works with this set exit on close enabled. I'm going to verify this, and then I'm going to come back to my trade station one more time. And there we go. Now you can see that it takes a trade whenever it sees a gap, and it exits at the end of the day. Let's take a look at that exit at the end of the day, because I want to see exactly where it ends. So you see that it's at the very last bar of the day, or last bar of the session if you're trading futures, and it's right at the close of the bar, exactly at the close. And you can see the little white marker right there inside of the body of the candle. The nice thing about this is that I reset my position for the opening of the next session, and I can see if it's trading in the direction or not. Okay, so this is my strategy for Disney. Again, there's no risk management. Let's take a quick look. I always take a quick look at the strategy performance report just out of curiosity. So strategy performance report, yeah, it's a negative strategy. Everybody sees right here that my net profit is a negative, $2,000. I have, or this strategy needs, us to manage risk. So whenever there's a gap, if the gap goes, against us or in the direction that we did not anticipate, then we need a way of exiting that trade. But again, we can work on that a little bit more if we were developing the strategy. But for now, let's talk about that end of day exit. Because if you go here to the documentation on this set exit on close, there's going to be a paragraph here, which is this second one. And I want to read this together with you guys, because it says, for historical simulations, set exit on close generates a market order on the bar close event of the last intraday bar for each day in the chart. When used, okay, so for historical, well, let's just make a distinction here. On historical trading, it works beautifully because it places a market order on the close of the bar. We just saw the white arrow, which is the exit, at exactly the close of the bar. When used in automation, though, and placing real world orders, set exit on close generates a limit order into the post-market trading session if one exists. Otherwise, a market order is generated for the open of the next regular session day. So the behavior is completely different now. And the reason why the behavior is different, because when set exit on close gets triggered, the bar has already closed. The market has already closed. So the behavior has to be different. The order is not going to be rejected, but it's going to be turned into a limit order if one exists. And I think there's a post market for Disney. But the likelihood of you getting out of your position, it's dramatically reduced, because you didn't do it before the market was still open. Now it's going into the post market. And notice how interesting it is that if there's no post market, then the exit is queued up for the next day, for the opening of the next session, which is not really what you want. If you want to exit your position before the market closes, then this would not work in an automated setting, because you have all these question marks or these things that could prevent you from getting out, which is, defeats the purpose of having a strategy. So what we're going to talk about today is doing that. How do we circumvent this set exit on close and how it's exiting at the close of the session? All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we can do to this strategy. Let me go back here to the PowerPoint just to make sure that we have everything. Okay, so set exit on close here in automation. In an automated strategy, placing real world orders, set exit on close generates, this is exactly what we found in that documentation. I think I may have just copied and pasted into this Word document. This is this PowerPoint, which you have as a PDF, but it's just here as a reminder of how set exit on close works when you automate a strategy. And by default, it uses the regular closing session time specified by the session settings on the chart. So here's a solution. In order to close a position at the end of the current session today, you must create a custom session that will force set exit on close to close an open position a few minutes before the actual session closed. Whew, what is that? What does that mean? Well, custom sessions. We are pretty much tricking the strategy into thinking that the sessions are different, into thinking that, yeah, the close of the market's not really at 4 p.m. We're going to trick the strategy into thinking that the close is at 3:55, 5 minutes before the close. You can do 3:59 or 3:58 as you get closer to the market, to the close of the market. Of course, you're risking not getting out altogether depending on volatility and when the market is. As long as you have market orders generated, really close to the market, there shouldn't be a problem. But if these are limit orders, then you may risk not getting out at all either. But we are going to trick the strategy into thinking that the session ends at a different time. How do we do that? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. Before we continue, let me go back here to my trade station. Right now, the time is 12:52. What I'm going to set my strategy to, or my custom session, is I'm going to, since there's 7 minutes before 1 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to set my custom session to exactly 1 so that we can see the automation in action, and this would actually play out perfectly if you have a different, ending time for your session. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go and I'm going to double click on one of these candles. I'm going to go to properties, regular session. I'm not going to use the regular session. I'm going to create my own. So I'm going to click on use custom session and I'm going to click on create. The name of the session is close at specific time. So I'm going to add sessions. Session 1 will be Monday. I'm going to do the same exact time of the stock market, so 9:30 a.m., but it's going to end at 1. This is not really close to the, the close of the market, but I want to see how it generates that selling transaction in real time. And one important thing that you have to mark here is this checkbox that says use this session as the end of the trading day marker, also for set exit on close keyword. So it's pretty much what we talked about. It's telling the strategy, hey, this is the end of the trading day, or at least, in my custom session, it is the end of the trading day. All right. I'm going to click OK and notice how it maps here the time from 9:30 all the way to 1. I'm going to click on this button that says add Monday through Friday. It saves me time. So it adds that Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 1 p.m. I'm going to click OK. And you can see that the session that is currently selected is closed at specific time. Is a time that I specified. I should have said close at 1, just so that, let me see if I can modify this. I cannot modify the name because it's tough to modify that time. You'd have to go into each one of them. So I should have said, close at 1, just to give it a more descriptive name. Because it doesn't have an input like an indicator or strategy that you can change on the fly. I'm going to click OK. And what's going on here, it may appear that the end or the exit is right at the close of the day. Close of the day meaning 4 p.m. But what we did here for Disney is that we removed the data from 1 p.m. all the way to 4 p.m. because our custom session is only plotting data up until 1. So if you look at the time on this last bar of the day, you're going to see that it's 1300. You see that time on the top left corner of this floating window, 1300. That's 1 p.m. So yes, it appears that it's at the close of the day at 4 p.m., but it's not. It's based on the custom session that we created. I'm going to automate this strategy because I want you guys to see how this works in real time. All right, so I have my strategy enabled. I don't have Disney in my positions, so I'm going to trade it manually because the strategy thinks I'm long 100. So I have to put in a trade manually. So Disney 100, I'm going to do a market order and I'm going to buy it. So I'm filled on Disney, and let's see. Let me go ahead and go to the apps and click on Trade Manager. I want to check my position match. Let me bring this down and resize this, and then bring this strategy up. There we go. Now, if I click on strategy positions, the strategy thinks I'm long 100 and I have a long 100 shares of a Disney. So the position match is true. So what I'm waiting for is for 1 p.m. to come along and automatically close my open position. Let's see if that happens. So set exit on close again can be used in automation. Just be mindful that for that to work as a close of end of day exit, you have to customize the session. Now, the same way that I selected 1 as the time that my session should end, you can select a time that is closer to the close of the day, maybe 3:58, 3:55, whatever is it that you want to choose. You can generate a trade that closes your position before the market is over. For futures traders, same applies. You can create your own custom session, and that way you can generate the exits at the time that you desire. Okay. So we have about 2 minutes here. This is and one thing to also point out is that this is a 5-minute chart. So the time or the session time that you specify, the session times that you specify, even if it's down to the minute, like if you select 3:58, that is going to be the time of that last bar because that's the time it closes. So, and that's regardless of the time frame you're using. So, and it may be a little bit confusing because I have my chart set to 5 minutes. So I may think that every bar's time is going to get an increment of 5 minutes, and they are, except for the last bar, because it follows the custom session. And if you specify the custom session to end at 3:58, that's exactly the timestamp that the last bar will have. So interesting, interesting characteristics to keep in mind. All right, so we are on the last minute. We have about some 50 seconds to go before it is 1 p.m. Eastern time. So we should have an execution shown right here before our eyes without us touching anything. So let's wait. You're going to see my Disney position disappear automatically based on my custom session. So we didn't specify a time inside the code. We just created a custom session and told the strategy that that was the close of our day. Okay, 10 seconds. And our day is going to close. Let's see. Order filled. Okay, you guys heard my audible confirmation. The market for Disney, according to my session, has ended. So set exit and close generated that closing transaction at exactly 1 p.m. As I said before, if you want to get closer to the closing time, then just adjust the custom session accordingly. But this is the best way for you to address a set exit and close situation that needs to be automated. Okay, pretty cool. Any questions so far about this? Will this work for price-based charting? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't tested it, So I would, recommend that you bring it up. Let's see if we go to Renko. Let's go to Renko here, and yeah, 5. It's fine. So on a Renko chart, the thing is that no, this will not apply to Renko because sessions, even though you should be able to adjust the sessions here. So edit symbol, the properties. If I go to sessions, apparently it allows you to select a custom session. But the problem is that the Renko chart is not going to close the session until the price movement is specified. And this is true for all the price-based charting. It doesn't timestamp, the closing brick or the closing column with the time of the session. because it just builds the chart based on price movement. It doesn't think about time. It doesn't think about trading activity. So it's all based on price movement. So if we don't have that timestamp on the actual chart, it will not exit. And you can see that I have my chart here. Let me load more history, or maybe drop the size of this brick to 0.25. So data, edit symbol. Let me do 0.10 so it doesn't load more data. So you can see that I have a lot of historical data here on this Renko chart, and the strategy doesn't generate trades. Well, first of all, because there's no gaps. Let's start there, If we had, so the strategy is in here. So I want to see if the set exit on close works. Well, once we switched it to Renko, it says invalid interval. The session first bar time function requires intraday data. So there's multiple components inside of the strategy that don't work out of the gate. Session first bar time, set exit on close. I don't think it works on these types of bars, but we would have to modify the strategy to see if it works, okay? If we get an error, then the strategy gets turned off. So if you come back and you change the interval and you're expecting for the arrows to show up again, you have to go to edit strategies and turn it on. Okay, that's because I was using it on Renko and it just didn't work there. All right, let's go back here to the PowerPoint because there's a few things that you can do as well. And in the PDF that I've shared with everyone here in class, I'm sharing multiple links to the forums, starting with this one, which is exiting at a preset exit time, a preset exit time. If everybody clicks on that link, I think I have the links already open here so you can see them. It takes you here. This is the document. And it shows you easy language code. Take a look at the input. It has an input called bail time. You put in the time that you want to bail out. And if the time is greater than the bail time, then it just generates selling transactions. And it has a set exit on close just in case it doesn't kick in. Just in case it doesn't kick in, and also it covers you in situations where if it closes your position at the time that you specify here, and then it enters again, like it puts you in a position one more time after having exited, then this will protect you and close you out also. Of course, just keep in mind that set exit on close kind of sends a limit order into the post market if there's any, or a market order for the following day. So just keep that in mind. So we have samples of code here that we can take a look at and see if we like other modifications better. The next one is exiting a number of bars before the end of the session. This is an interesting one. This is topic ID 29053. Let's go here to $290,053. Okay, so the post is about at close orders cannot be used on NASDAQ stocks. I wanted to buy or sell near the close. And this is the little bit of code that was provided by this user. On intraday charts, number of bars before close, that's an input. So you specify the number of bars before the end of the session that you want to close at. This uses the calc time function that calculates what is the time of that 3 bars before the end of the session. So that if it has the time, then it generates those selling transactions. This is a way for you to exit at a specific number of bars before the end of the session. So interesting piece of code right here. And this next 2 topics, exit at or before the close using a market order or limit order, and convert a limit order to a market order using strategy automation. Let's take a look at some examples on the next 2 forum links. So if the time is so and so, then sell this bar and close, or buy to cover this bar and close. Notice the time, 1500, which is about 3 p.m. I always think about it's a time that is within market hours for the trade to be executed. Here we have 1459, which is 259. Next bar market and bar market. This is an interesting one. Take a look at this piece of code, which is in blue. This is I'm referring to this piece of code right here. If the time is greater than 1458, then notice how it's generating selling transactions at the inside ask and the inside bid. This is a good way for you to reference what the current inside bid or inside asks are and enter a limit order at those prices. You may get filled, with some price improvement. But notice that that happens at 1458, but then it recalculates at 1459 and then replaces those orders with plain market orders. So it gives the strategy a chance of getting filled at a limit order, which is a more controlled way of getting filled because you are at least specifying a price. But then if it doesn't get filled, then you want to probably generate a selling transaction at market. So you're definitely out of the market. So I found that to be very interesting as well. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3. On this other one, okay. Here's some additional code. So I wanted to share all these different links with you so that you can see how other TradeStation users have modified their easy language code in order to make their strategies work in automation mode and be able to close their positions before the session ends. On this second page of links, let me see if I can go forward. Exit minutes or seconds before the session end using intrabar order generation. This is topic ID 38187. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one right here. This is a little bit more involved strategy. User by a username Goose submitted a strategy that has all these attributes. So it uses minutes before the session close in the exit time calculation. So you have to supply what the count is going to be. It gives you an example. 2 will cause the strategy to execute beginning 2 minutes prior to session close. So it's an interesting strategy. And the nice thing about this, after you read all the things that the strategy does, is that it provides you the ELD, which is the best part, so you're looking at the discussion, you're looking at the comments, you're looking at the different variations of the strategy, and then the user provides a link here with an ELD extension. If I were to click here, that will open an ELD. Okay, notice right here at the bottom, it downloaded the ELD. And as soon as I open that file, it launches my TradeStation to import the function and the strategy. If I click next, the function is called early close and the strategy is called EOD exit. And then next is just another function. So the functions are probably, or were probably created for the strategy to work, and they're referenced inside of the strategy. That's why you have 3 different files, but the one that you want to put on the chart is the end of day exit strategy. I'm going to say yes to all and okay. So I just added that strategy here to the chart, so I can go to studies, add strategy, and I can select that from the list of studies. It's called EOD exit right in there. And you can see, the different inputs for this strategy. I use seconds, count before close, long exit, short exit, or end of week. So there's different things you can turn on and off. And best yet, you can, select the strategy and edit the easy language. So if I open up the easy language, you can see that this strategy was generated some 27 years ago. And no, I'm sorry, not 27. Where's my math? 17 years ago, right? 17 going on 20, 17 going on 18 years. And you can see how the strategy easy language still works. So always refer to these samples of code because they're going to give you ideas on how to solve this close and close automation. This is a link that uses an exit last 15 minutes of the day using parabolic SAR. So some users are not, if you really want to get closer to the closing time, maybe 15 minutes before, it's a long time, so it's up to you, which one of these to use and how to modify that. Exit just before the close and detects holiday shortened days and create a custom session that ends earlier than regular session. This last one is the one that we walked you through right here in class, which is the simpler way of modifying the strategy. And you're not really modifying the strategy. What you're doing is tricking the strategy into thinking that the close of the day is at a different time. And you do that by creating a custom session. That is the best approach if you're having difficulties having a strategy generating those exits at the end of the day. And that's it. I want to leave the disclosure here for a moment, just in case you didn't see the very first one. The links in the chat, of course I can. Or although the links are in the PDF, Jim, did you get them in the PDF? They should work on the PDF. No, you're very welcome, Jim. And that way you can all reference, the information that's there. I know that some of these posts, they link to other conversations. So it turns into a very interesting read about how people resolve this limitation about automating closes at the end of the day. All right. The PDF, let's repost that just in case you didn't see it. And for those that are watching the recording of this presentation, please just send me an email, jnava@tradestation.com, and I'll be glad to share that PDF with everyone, okay? Have a wonderful afternoon. Great having you. Remember that our class tomorrow is at 11:30. We do that earlier because it's just easy language. It was easier to track. So see everyone tomorrow at 11:30. We're going to talk about showing some strategy information inside of the indicators. So we're going to code in class, okay? Thank you for being here. Have a wonderful afternoon. I'll see you next class. Bye-bye, everyone.